morning, everybody. Can we all agree that Connor did a great job this morning? Yes. It's definitely inspiring to see such young and successful entrepreneurs come out of the Atlanta area, especially Georgia Tech. So what was cool is that Connor is a freshman at Georgia Tech, but our next speakers are graduates from Georgia Tech too. And so Keith, who is in the hat over here from FitGenie, he actually graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Electrical Engineering and then worked for Boeing as an aerospace and defense contractor, which is really fascinating, but he didn't really like it. So after he stopped that, he worked with Obis, and together they started FitGenie. So while they were in college at Georgia Tech, Obis and Keith were part of a powerlifting club, and their membership grew to over 100 members. And so they needed to have more space, so they started working at a gym with a partner, and they really began to launch this gym and nutrition coaching too. And so with that, FitGenie was born, and they brought on 6 members total, also Georgia Tech graduates. And I actually have the FitGenie app. It's really cool, super easy to use, so I recommend you guys check it out. It's free, and you can download it very easily off of the App Store. But I don't want to give away too many details, so I'll let Obis and Keith come up. So if you could help me welcome them to the stage, let's hear all about it.
What is going on? Oh, is my mic on? Cool. Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Obis, as Morgan said. It's really dope to be out here. Like, it's really, really dope. Because, no, I'm serious. Like, it's like really dope. Because literally, so we got the invite probably like 2 weeks ago, right, Keith?
About 2 weeks ago.
About 2 weeks ago. And we were like, okay, I guess we're just going to roll up and like talk about some stuff. And it wasn't until like yesterday morning, they were like, hey, you guys got to talk for 45 minutes and have a presentation. We were like, dang. So Connor did an awesome job, and I feel bad for you guys because this is going to be fun. But we put this presentation together last night, and hopefully, you know, we kind of want to make it really friendly, like campside fire chat. I've only been to like one campfire side thing. I don't even know what it is. I can't even say it. So we kind of want to give you an overview about our journey, how we met, our background, and then like touch on what FitGenie is, and hopefully give you guys some wisdom on everything.
Yeah, so it's mainly going to be a lot of storytelling because we're still new to this. We've only been really a company for pretty much this summer, so we're new and fresh to the entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So pretty much what FitGenie is a smart calorie counter powered by artificial intelligence. I was going to say AI, but in case you don't know what AI is, artificial intelligence. I'll touch on the company later. We kind of wanted to put that at the end of the presentation because we kind of want to go into our story and our background, like Keith said. So once again, my name is Obis. Both Keith and I are first-generation Nigerian Americans. Both my parents immigrated to America from Nigeria back in the 70s. It's actually kind of funny how my parents met. So way before internet existed and, you know, there wasn't anything like Tinder or, you know, any like type of swipe. And there's no internet, like you couldn't connect with people. Like the volume of connections that we have today is nowhere near what it was back then. So usually when you met somebody for the first time, you're like, okay, am I trying to wipe this chick or not? Like, it's like 1-0, you know? So my dad was going to school in America, and my mom was still in Nigeria, and she was a nurse. And my dad was like, I need to find a wife. Like, it's about that time. So, my dad, his aunt was working at the same nursing hospital that my mom was. And my dad pretty much was like, hey, like, put in a good word for me if there's anyone there. And my mom was working there, and my aunt goes, hey, I got this nice nephew. He's great. He's smart. He's working hard. Would you be interested? And my mom was like, I don't know. And the one big thing in Nigeria is that your family kind of is a reflection of who you are. And, you know, my dad comes from a good family, and so does my mother. So that is what kind of convinced her to want to, you know, be courted by my dad. So my dad flew back to Nigeria, met with my mom once. They talked. She met our family. Her dad her dad met my grandfather, and they were like, "This guy seems legit." Okay. And then my dad had to go back to America for school, and the day he left, my mom just, because there's no telephone, like power exists for only a fraction of a second over there. The power is not constant. So my mom just showed up the day he was leaving. She was like, "Yo," and my dad was like, "Yo," and said their goodbyes, wrote letters. Dad flew her out to America. They got married. That's it. So, the story's kind of interesting, and it semi-relates to my background because Nigerian culture is deeply rooted in who I am, and a lot of the principles and the work ethic that has kind of gotten into the startup has come from what my parents instilled in me and what Nigerian culture is all about. So moving forward from there, I was born eventually, and I was born in Boston, moved to Georgia or Atlanta when I was 2, and I've pretty much been an Atlanta native ever since then. One big thing about me is that I've always loved to create since I was a little kid. I was always a pretty big nerd. I remember the biggest memory I have of me being a nerd was I was 5 years old, and we had this little dinky this was before laptops were laptops. So if you had a kid's laptop, it pretty much was a little bit more advanced than a deck of cards, and it had this game on there that was a math game, and I'll never forget the question that they asked because I was 5, I could barely read and tie my shoes, and I was barely potty trained, So they had this math question on there. It was what is 5 minus 2? And I have 3 sisters, so I grew up very feminine. But yeah, so I had 3 sisters, and they all tried to guess, the question. So my youngest sister couldn't get it, my older sister couldn't get it, and then they gave it to me, and I literally just guessed. I was like, yeah, it's 3. What's wrong with you guys? And it was the right answer. And my mom gassed me up. She was like, "Man, you're so smart." It'll be all this stuff, and I was like, yeah. Yeah, I'm that dude. So ever since then, I've always kind of really been fascinated with math and science and creating and kind of using my brain to make cool things. Growing up, I kind of had, like I said, a passion for creating, and I remember I really got into astronomy when I was in 4th grade. We took a trip down to Cape Canaveral, Florida. That's in Florida, right? I'm not good at geography, sorry. Cape Canaveral, Florida, where they have the spaceships and stuff, and the astronauts that do moon stuff. And we watched a 3D movie, which I don't know if 3D movies were brand new back then, but that was the coolest thing in the world. So the 3D movie was about astronauts in space, and after that I was like, this stuff's pretty cool. So I was the kid that would go at lunch and I would rent out every single planet, all of the books in the series, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and read up on them, read up on space travel, time travel, and I was committed. I was like, I'm going to be an astronaut when I grow up. That's going to happen. I don't care what you say. So I wanted to kind of make rockets when I was younger. So imagine, a 10-year-old kid thinking about, okay, how am I going to make jet fuel? That was me. So I didn't end up going with that passion, but just to kind of give you some background, creation has always been my thing. And then moving forward, throughout high school, I loved music, so I tried to start making music in high school. I put out a couple projects, and then I was really big on soccer. I played soccer in high school, and then I got into Georgia Tech, and that's where I met Keith.
All right, so I'm Keith Osayande. I'm also Nigerian American, and my parents' life story isn't as crazy as Obis, but so essentially my dad, he was an immigrant to the United States in the 80s. He came here with nothing but his suitcase and no money because he spent all of his money on the plane ticket to get from Nigeria to here. And when he first got here, he wasn't actually close to his school because he just bought the first plane ticket he could find. And it turns out he was, a state away from where he actually needed to be. So he had to pick fruit like a lot of other immigrants did when they first moved to this country. So that type of work ethic and drive to make happen what you want happen was instilled to me from a young age. And those lessons that he's taught me have kind of been passed on, to me, and I've used them in this entrepreneurship journey. But now to me, because I don't really want to talk about my dad. As a child, I was a pretty good student, but unlike Obi, I wasn't actually embracing my nerdiness or geekiness. I would kind of just get work done fast and play around, kind of a court jester. I wouldn't sleep during nap time. They would yell at me. I used to get kicked out of class, so I wasn't actually the greatest student in all honesty, but then as I grew and got more mature, I became a better student. So I don't know if Obi said this, but we went to the same high school, St. Pius Catholic High School, and before that time, I was in a school that was, it was a public school, and it was a lot of Central and South American immigrants, so I was exposed to a lot of different cultures, but then it was a culture shock when I went to St. Pius because that was predominantly just an affluent Caucasian environment. So being exposed to that also changed me because now I'm able to deal with lots of different cultures and ethnic groups, and that is something that has stayed with me my entire life. I like connecting people. I like bringing people together. I like just exposing and connecting lots of different types of people. So then, pretty much graduated high school, met Obi, and now I'm here.
It's a nice segue to the next slide. And then big thing, what Keith
I love this guy.
Yeah, we do. My favorite part about that slide is the heart, because that's like the only decoration we have on any of these slides. Anyway, a big thing on what Keith touched on is like connecting people. That's what, we kind of had similar paths going through high school, but we didn't really talk and know about each other too much.
Because he was really weird. He didn't talk to anybody.
I was super weird. Like, we'll touch on this in a later slide, but I was the quietest, gangliest, most awkward kid you'll ever meet. Like, if you told 15-year-old Obi that people would come to an event and listen to him talk about a business, he'd be like, what? And he wouldn't make eye contact because he's awkward. But yeah, I'll let Keith touch on how we met because it's kind of interesting.
All right. So the beginning of my college career, I wasn't actually at Georgia Tech. I started my college career at Georgia Southern, and they had this program called the Regents Engineering Transfer Program. So I was at Georgia Southern for 2 years, and then I transferred to Georgia Tech afterwards. And once I transferred, it was pretty difficult. I actually almost failed out of Georgia Tech because my very first class at Georgia Tech was the hardest class in electrical engineering with the hardest professor. So shout out to my advisor who told me that was cool and okay to do. And then my second class was another class where the GPA was like, I think it was like a 2.3. So yeah, great advisor. She advised me really well. So we almost fell out of Georgia Tech, and at that time, I guess I had gotten stressed out, so I started eating more. So I got like kind of obese, not like morbidly, but I was like fat and out of shape. And that's when I started going back to the gym, working out, training. And at that time, that's kind of when I reconnected with Obi because he was always there with a couple of other guys who were really into strength training and nutrition. And through that, they helped me get back into shape. And they saw that like, oh, you don't really train to be strong, but you're stronger than a lot of people. Why don't you take up powerlifting? And through that, I started powerlifting, started competing at the national level. And in this process, Obi taught me a lot about nutrition. And through his teaching of nutrition, we thought, a lot of people have problem with nutrition and they don't actually know what they need to do to lose weight or gain muscle mass. So we decided to actually start a free nutrition service to like people that we knew and people that would come to us. So we would actually like weekly go through the foods that they need to be eating, go through training with them, things of that nature, really building up our knowledge and experience with coaching individuals and helping us use our passion of helping those around us. And through that, in that time, we also started the Georgia Tech Barbell Club, which is it's like about 250 students now, and it's composed of fitness enthusiasts, people who are just generally into fitness, and then there's also a competitive side of the club, so we have a few people that have national and world records, so it's not just nerdy individuals who just like to do math at Georgia Tech. Some of us do physical things as well.
Yeah, and I guess this part of the talk will start segueing into the business, I promise. So more about the Georgia Tech Barbell Club. It actually was an organization that existed in 2000. It disbanded in 2005, but prior to that, it existed for 50 years. And essentially, they had, it was kind of like a congregation of guys who just trained at a closet gym space that was underneath the ladies' volleyball practice facility. And then they got kicked out because of Title IX. They said that you had to have your practice facilities in the same location as your locker room for both genders. So the club kind of disbanded. And myself and Keith and a couple other guys, we both kind of became friends when we were into fitness. And we were like, hey, why can't we form a community out of this? And that's where the Georgia Tech Barbell Club came out of. It came out of community and connecting people. So the thing we're kind of going to try to hinge on this entire talk is, our big purpose. And I think a lot of people's purpose when they decide to start their own company is both creation and connecting people. So we started the Barbell Club, and like Keith said, we did this nutrition coaching based off of our knowledge that we learned through many of our idols in the industry and many of the research topics that we had been looking at involving nutrition. And the big thing is that we thought that because we had kind of learned this on our own, and it had helped us grow and it helped us out with our journey, like this is something that should be free for everybody. And one big pain in the rear about nutrition is that it's kind of a science that not too many people know about, and if you want to have someone coach you, it costs upwards of $300 a month to have nutrition coaching. It's not accessible to everybody. It's something that's super difficult, and usually if you try and go about it yourself, you'll find yourself sifting through a lot of pseudoscience and a lot of bad advice. So we were like, hey, we have this community at Tech. Why can't we go about doing this coaching for everyone there for free? So we started doing this coaching, and along that same vein, we also formed a community with a gym that we opened up with one of our co-founders. His name is Dan. He owns a sports nutrition company called Citadel Nutrition. And it's funny how we kind of connected with Dan. We knew about his company just through the grapevine because it's an Atlanta-based company. And it's very, the supplement industry is very, it's bad. It's really bad. There's a lot of bad people in the supplement industry. Side note, you'd have no idea how many people that own supplement companies that are convicted felons. Dan is not one of them, though. Dan is a really good guy, and his company is a really good guy, or his company is a really good company. And so I actually emailed him. This was summer 2014. I remember I was in my dorm room. We were recruiting freshmen because the club was in its first year. And I was like, maybe I just send him an email and say what's up, let him know I like what you guys are doing. Pretty much just letting him know we exist without expecting anything in return. And he's also a Georgia Tech alum, and he emailed back immediately, and he was like, this is awesome, we want to be a part of this community, blah, blah, all this stuff. And, a couple back and forth emails, then we realized, hey, we both have a lot of the same interests. And he was like, hey, we're thinking about relocating our office. You guys want a gym? Literally, that was that was it. You guys want a gym? And I was like, LOL, yeah, bro. And, we opened a gym a year later for the organization. We raised money internally. He funded it himself. And we formed this community. And with this community, we were doing a lot of nutrition coaching for people for free. And the interesting thing about fitness and nutrition that we've kind of noticed in the industry, it's so antiquated in the way it does so many things. It's 2016, and nutrition coaches are still sending Excel spreadsheets and Word documents, back and forth through email to send protocols to their clients. And that, I remember, we Keith and I were talking about that. We're like, why is this, Excel spreadsheets? Humans are doing, what? I mean, we realize it's coaching is mainly just math and intuition. And that's when we were like, we can automate this. I don't know how, but we're going to do it. So moving forward, we started with the CreateX program at Georgia Tech. Essentially, the CreateX program is one of my favorite parts about Georgia Tech. They try and cater to a startup culture. and bring young Georgia Tech students, young and old, through the whole startup process so that by the time they graduate, they're ready to start a company. So I actually started in Startup Lab, which is a class at Georgia Tech my senior year, my 4th year. It took me 5 years to graduate because I'm a slowpoke. And at that time, like, I had no clue. I had no clue what, you could have a career doing a startup. Like, I remember, going through Georgia Tech and going through life, I really didn't know what I wanted to do ever. And my first year, I was like, okay, I'm a mechanical engineer. And literally the only reason I picked that is because they had the most people in it. I was like, okay, if everyone's being a mechanical engineer, then they must be doing something right, so I'll do that too. And, I was taking my courses, and people were like, oh, do you know what you want to do yet? I was like, nah. Second year came around, I got a co-op, and I did the first term of the co-op, and they're like, oh, so you did the co-op, like, did you like it? Do you know what you want to do yet? Nah. Third year came around, same thing. Fourth year came around, and I got in the Startup Lab on a whim, kind of thinking, okay, maybe there is something to starting your own company and doing something for yourself. So the first idea that we ever had, because the purpose of Startup Lab was teaching you the beginning stages of a startup. So this is doing customer discovery, market research, and maybe building a semi-proof of concept product at the end of it. So our idea was this thing called CrossX, a play off CrossFit. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to build a platform for coaches to interact with their clients, CrossFit coaches. And for some reason, people liked it because I don't know, but it was kind of a crappy idea and app and everything. But the coaches really liked it, and that kind of instilled confidence in us. But I think the funniest moment about doing CrossX, and we'll touch on that later here, is that we thought we were more done than we actually were. So by that I mean we had wireframes, we had mock-ups, we had a Photoshop of 4 screens on the app, and I'll never forget a dude in our group, after we finished the last wireframe at 1 a.m., he turns to us and he's like, the app is done. He's like, yeah, it's done. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, the app is done. And I was like, okay. I mean, we gassed ourselves up, but we got really excited about doing startups and building a business, through that program. So moving forward from there, Keith started working for Boeing. I was working down in South Florida. I was interning for FPL. And that's kind of how the idea for FitGenie was born. We were talking to each other back and forth, and I had this idea that we could automate the whole nutrition coaching thing. And that's when Keith hit me up.
All right, so as Obis said, after I graduated with electrical engineering from Georgia Tech, I got a job with Boeing. I had interned with them for, I think, 2 years. Yeah. So once I transferred to Georgia Tech, I got that internship the first semester before they had my Georgia Tech GPA, so they never knew I was actually failing. So pro tip, if they don't ask for your GPA, don't ever tell them. So I went there. They thought I was good, and they just kept inviting me back. I don't know why. I just slept all day. Not really. I'm joking. But so after I graduated, I started working full-time. I kind of knew growing up that I never really wanted to work for anyone because I had done a lot of leadership positions in high school and while I was in college. So I kind of knew that being a leader and entrepreneurship and things of that nature was something that I eventually wanted to pursue. But while in college, I didn't actually take care of my studies as well as I should have. So there were things like getting a minor in computer science that I wanted to do, but I couldn't do because I had to end up retaking a year's worth of classes. So don't fail, guys. But once I got to Boeing, I realized once again that, man, this wasn't for me. Just running computer simulations and doing reports about something that I really didn't care about wasn't really for me. And I think I had probably one of my worst days. I don't really remember what had happened, but it was a really bad day. I hit up Obi and I was like, yo, I don't want to do this. Let's do a startup. And then that's when we started talking about FitGenie. I think 2 or 3 weeks later, he flew out to Houston because it was around, I think, Memorial Day. He slept on my couch for 3 days, and we started coding. But by coding, I mean we started learning how to code because neither of us actually learned how to code in college. So we learned HTML and made a website. And we were like, man, we're them dudes. We can do this. And all we had was like a really crappy website, but we thought we were cool.
Yeah.
And from then, we just kept working. He would work on it after school. I would work on it after work. And this, mind you, this is while I was still competing in powerlifting. He was still running the club. So it was taking up a lot of time. But we were cranking along. And then he told me that he applied to StartItUp Summer. And he was like, man, this interview was really terrible. I don't think we got it. But then for whatever reason, they gave it to us. We had to tell them our decision if we were going to actually enter the program in like 2 weeks. And so I just, the next day, gave my 2-week notice to Boeing, packed up my stuff, left Houston, and then just like drove back to Atlanta. And then we started the program.
That was probably like the craziest 2 weeks ever.
Yeah, I didn't like sleep for a week. It was great.
Yeah. But the pivotal moment there that I think a lot of young entrepreneurs can kind of like take some hints from is the day I flew down to Houston when we didn't have a single line of code written. We kind of knew what we wanted to do. Like the day I was like, yep, we're doing that all in. That was it. That's what started. If I didn't buy that plane ticket on Labor Day, which I got the Delta flight for a discount because I waited like a day before, and like a lot of people like cancel their flights. So anyway, it was dope. If I didn't buy that plane ticket, like who knows what? Like that commitment is so important. But like he said, we got into StartItUp Summer, and that's kind of where like the ball really started rolling. Like the ball was like kind of like rotating a little bit. Like the ball was really rolling when we got into StartItUp Summer. And I think, these next couple slides are kind of going to be the things that we are learning and we have learned because we're still doing this. Like this isn't like we made it top of the mountain. Like, let me tell you how we got there. It's like, we're climbing the mountain and telling like you guys behind us, like this is how to take the next step, So the first thing that we kind of noticed and that Keith touched on is that it's okay to be an imposter. And by that, what we mean is that it's okay to not feel like you were born good at something, or like, oh, I wasn't a CS major, I can't learn to code. Oh, I don't know graphic design, I can't do graphic design. I think a lot of times, maybe it's our culture, but a lot of people feel that if they weren't set up to be a certain thing, if they're not that one thing, they can't be it. And I think the beautiful thing about entrepreneurship is that it invites you to learn so many things and pretend that you know so many things. So for example, like the whole being an imposter thing, my favorite human on planet Earth is David Blaine. Because he is a magician and he deceives people. And I think that's the coolest thing in the world. So it is. I think it's fascinating. So for example, like I said, I was a big soccer fan, and I played soccer when I was younger. And I remember, growing up, like I stopped playing soccer right before I was in middle school. And if you stop playing any sport when you're going through puberty, your body gets all gangly, you don't know what to do, and then, it's just, you lose all coordination. So I was still into soccer, but I stopped playing, and then my freshman year of high school, I wanted to join the soccer team. So we both went to St. Pius. St. Pius has an incredible soccer program, and it's not an easy team to get onto. So my first year at St. Pius, I didn't make the team, and it was crushing. Like I was like, soccer's my thing. Like what the hell? Like I didn't make, like why? Come on. And so I became a soccer manager, and that's where I met a lot of my friends. And I was like, nobody's telling me no. Like, I'm going to work at this, and I'm going to make the team my second year. Like, it's going to happen. So my second year comes along, and tryouts are happening again. And I'll never forget this. It was a fall. It was like 32 degrees outside. And it was the second day of tryouts. And one thing about me, I think I'm, like, kind of self-aware. So I realized, I'm not too good at, like, this soccer stuff. I'm really bad. And I was like, I'm going to find a way to make the team. So I start looking around. Like, this is literally in the middle of a drill, and I'm like, who's playing keeper? I look over, it's like a short, unathletic kid, another, like, kind of awkward kid. I was like, I could do that. So I go to coach. I was like, yo, Coach O'Shea, like, is it chill if I like try out for keeper? He's like, yeah, I guess. So I go over there, try out for keeper, and made the team my JV year. Mind you, I didn't even have gloves on. Like, I literally was playing with my bare hands. So that kind of like, mindset of like finding, witty shortcuts, being a quote unquote imposter, faking it while you make it. I think that's like something that's super important to have as a mindset if you're going to do a startup. Because there's going to be so many things that you don't know about that you have to learn to know about and pretend to know about while you're doing it.
And then to touch on this again, it's not just about being an imposter, it's also about if you don't necessarily look like other people that are doing entrepreneurship or like we're doing an app or anything of that nature, it doesn't matter. Like, just do it. Because the key thing that we keep harping on is just make the decision and choice to do a startup or to do whatever you've set out to do in life. Because if you're not all the way in or dedicated, in all honesty, you're probably not going to succeed. But we've noticed it from the startup program and just ourselves that once we made the decision to say, all right, startups is what we're going to do, FitGenie is what we're going to do, all the opportunities and experience and growth that we have had has happened after that moment. So while we were working part-time, like while we were working full-time jobs and working behind the scenes on FitGenie, we were getting work done, but not at the rate that we are right now. So just, it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. Like, my dad came here with a suitcase and no money. His parents, like, did 1970 version of Tinder. Like, it doesn't really matter where you come from. Just
that was the best analogy ever.
just like, doesn't matter. Be an imposter. Keep going.
I think this is my favorite slide, and Connor had this word on one of his slides too, and I think it's super important. To be stubborn, and grit is your number one asset. So by be stubborn, I mean don't take no for an answer. If something's not working, it's going to work eventually. Keep beating your head against that concrete wall until the concrete wall breaks open or you die. JK, don't die. But that's something that we've kind of learned, that grit is so important. And I think one phrase that we, Keith and I talk about when we come into the workspace, Keith will be in there a little bit earlier. I'll come in.
A little bit, you mean like 4 hours before you?
Yeah, Keith works super early. I work super late, so we're like always offset. But anyway, when we do cross paths, we'll come in and we'll have kind of like an hour, like 30-minute stand-up conversation, and we always touch on this. How like an average man can do above average stuff is with above average grit. That is the key differentiator that makes someone that's not born a certain way or doesn't have a certain disposition do incredible things. And that's the one thing that's in your control, your grit. I think, do we have a story on here to tell? Oh, yes, I do have a story. Cool. So one thing about me is, like I said, I'm pretty stubborn, and I really, really do harp on details a lot. So when I was going through Georgia Tech, I never went to office hours, ever. Don't do that. It's like the stupidest thing ever. But it's because I was super stubborn, and I was like, I'm too proud to like have somebody teach me something. Terrible idea, horrible idea. But one thing that like kind of, in my grades, like didn't do too hot sometimes because I didn't go to office hours. But one thing that it did teach me is it taught me how to teach myself. I learned to learn. And that's one thing that you have to do when you do a startup. You have to learn and learn to love learning. But yeah, I mean that's what it's been this entire summer. It's been super gritty. It's been super grindy. Having to teach ourselves how to code, teach ourselves artificial intelligence, pick up web dev, pick up iOS dev, many tools in the toolbox. And there were times that we spent 9 days trying to figure out how to get pages to swipe the correct way on our app. 9 freaking days. And that, there were times I would, because the way I work is I work on something until like my eyes feel like they're bleeding, and then I'll take a nap and be like, all right, I'll figure it out in my sleep. And that was like kind of the process for 9 days. And it was like, we can't even get freaking pages to swipe. Like, is this app ever going to get done? But always in the back of my head, The analogy light at the end of the tunnel, for me, it's like a firefly in the middle of an empty stadium. That's like, I could always see there was that North Star. So, keep grinding, keep gritting. That's what startups are all about.
Yeah, and then along with keep grinding is, as Obis said, keep learning, right? So we don't actually believe in anything being a loss or an L.
There's no such thing.
You either won, as in you succeeded, or you got what you wanted, or you learned from that negative experience, right? So there was a time when we were working on the app, and then we were also working on making a platform for coaches to interact with their clients, to actually update their nutrition targets for their clients so they wouldn't have to send antiquated Excel spreadsheets to people. So we were doing that. We were almost done. We were ready to roll it out. And in like a week or two, we had started talking to coaches. And this is all because with the Georgia Tech StartItUp Summer program, you get funding, but you don't actually have to take the funding. So at that time, we hadn't taken the funding yet because we were like, okay, we want sole ownership. We want more imaginary shares that don't mean anything because it makes us feel good on the inside. So we were like running through all of my 401k money that I made, and then like all of his, I don't know how he makes money, but however he did that, we had run through almost all of it. And so we were making this platform, and we were like, man, we're spending a lot of time on this, and it's like gonna take a lot of effort to get it to where we need it to be to actually make money. And doing that while making an app for consumers, like that's splitting our resources. We're not able to make both of them at the speed that we want. So after talking to some of our advisors, talking to some more coaches, we decided to actually scrap that project. And mind you, this is something that we had spent probably over a month during the summer. So a month worth of time, we were just like, yeah, we're not using that anymore. Damn, that kind of sucks. But it was okay because it helped us refine our algorithms. It taught us more skills that we actually use now. So it taught us to improve our web development skills, which has made our website better that we use for the app, which has brought us more traction. The algorithms that we're using in our app got improved from doing the coach's algorithms. So once we finish rolling in those features into the app is going to be better, faster. So as you see, even though something that we spent over a month on ended up, we're not actually directly using it, that knowledge and experience that we gained is incredibly valuable because, I don't know, coding's one of those things where if you just do it all the time, you get better. So just keep learning.
Yeah.
That's what we did.
And I even remember the meeting that we had right when we realized, okay, we have to scrap this platform that we just spent 4 weeks on. We were depressed for like 30 seconds, and we were like, that's a W, chalk it up. Because, we, like I said, Keith mentioned that we learned so many cool things and so many useful things that we could apply towards the rest of the project. And because of that, like, it's crazy. Once you throw something away, it seems like you're losing it. But we don't think of it that way. We gained so much knowledge from that without that experience, the app right now wouldn't be anywhere near as good as it is right now. So this whole saying 2 L's make a W, the way I think about it, like, L doesn't exist in my alphabet. Like, it just goes like, was it J? I don't know. I can't count alphabets. It just skips over the L and goes to N. So 2 L's make a W. If you take an L right here, you take an L right here, W. Like, there's no L. It's just W. Everything's a win. You can always draw a positive from something. I think that's something that's super important when you're doing a startup. Because there are going to be bad times.
There's going to be a lot of bad times.
Mainly bad times.
And we're not saying this to like scare you or joking, but like there's in all honesty, there's kind of a reason a lot of people don't start businesses or companies. It's hard. It's actually probably going to be the most difficult thing you've done in your life, but the experiences you gain, the knowledge that you gain is incredibly invaluable. And in all honesty, I kind of enjoy it more than just going to work every day doing something that I don't really care about. Because hopefully if you're starting a business, it's something that you're passionate about and that you actually care about. So if you're doing something that you enjoy every day, even though it's extremely difficult, it will end up actually being some of the best and most fun times you'll ever have.
I think we have like 5 minutes. So I mean,
like 2
minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll zoom through this. So this one, build a business. We kind of noticed that a lot of young entrepreneurs, they sometimes focus on getting investment money. They're like, yeah, I have this idea, and like, how can I get VC funding? But sometimes we kind of forget that the purpose of doing a startup is to build a sustainable business and build something people want. And I think that's super important to do that and have that be your primary focus, do it for the right reasons, and then look to get VC funding or investment funding to scale. So, yeah. This, I think, is probably our favorite slide on here. And force yourself to struggle. By that, we mean demand a lot of yourself and put yourself in a position that's going to bring out the best in you. So, for example, I kind of said, like, we're not at the top of the mountain yet. We're still getting there. So, right now, I live on a couch. I go to MARTA, to Atlanta to work with Keith. Keith, where do you live at?
I left Houston, good job, and now I live at home with my parents making, like, no actual money right now.
Yeah. So we're grinding just like you guys are, like, and that kind of being in that position of, like, yo, we're in the dirt, like, elbows, knees in the mud. That's kind of brought out the best. Like, this is like we did a lot of stuff at Georgia Tech. Like, we built freaking robots, and I've never done better work than we have done right now, because we've kind of demanded these, like, over the top goals about ourselves. Like, hey, build an artificial intelligence algorithm by the end of the summer, and it's done in June. When you put yourself in positions to struggle to do things that you don't think you can do, it's crazy how well the human body adapts to being in positions of struggle.
And lastly, just keep going. It never stops. Like, any good days you have, like, enjoy them, celebrate them a little bit, but then just, like, keep going. If you have a bad day, you'll have a lot of bad days. Don't let it, like, bring down your whole week or your month. Just learn from that experience and keep going. The highs are probably never as high as you think, and the lows are probably never as low as you think. Just try to stay in the middle and just keep going. It doesn't stop. Can't stop, won't stop.
Can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we're right there with you guys, man. We haven't made it yet. We're still getting ready, gearing up for launch. So it's a never-ending process, and you kind of have to embrace that process.
We're done. Yeah.
Real quick, we'll just touch on what FitGenie is. It's a smart calorie counter powered by artificial intelligence. It has cool things. You can track your food. We give targeted nutrition protocols to people. I know this is sounding kind of like salesy, but I just wanted to get this in so you guys know what the hell we do. We're not just talking whoop wop up here.
Yeah, and then the App Store tells you more about us. And you can go to our website right there if you want to know more. Yep. And talk to us afterwards if you have any questions.
Cool. Well, that's it. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, they make me feel short, too. Wasn't that awesome? Oh, great.